part of the finding a solution. As we've heard over witnesses so far and in reading what's going on in your testimony today, that solving this problem is basically an all of industry, all of society type concern. It involves prevention, it involves consumer awareness, the justice system changes, police CBSA involvement, technology, insurance, like many facets to fixing this, government policy. So, you know, I was interested in your last comments, Mr. Adams, but you said you were concerned about government policies that may actually hinder the work being done to prevent car thefts. And I know you talked about some technology side of it. Does that also include the potential for, you know, the current government software on crime approach? Does that have any impact on, and all three of you can weigh in on that, does that have any impact on the reality of where we're at? Toronto told us on Monday that 50% of their thieves that they catch are repeat offenders. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this.
I would say in response to the question is that if you look at the reality that organized crime right now, where auto theft fits in the hierarchy of where they're focusing their activity, my understanding that it's third on their list now. And if the two things that are ahead of it are drugs and other such initiatives, fentanyl, and when you think about the consequences of being charged with drug possession or trafficking in drugs, I guess what I would say is that maybe we need to look at similar type of provisions with respect to the consequences of being prosecuted for auto theft crimes.
Mr. Williams?
I would say this. We've literally done hundreds of meetings with police agencies. Our dealers are meeting in the communities with police all the time. And the number one thing that we hear from our dealers meeting with police and our own meetings is that the revolving door justice system. People are arrested and they're let out the same day. Police are extremely frustrated with this. I know you're hearing from police officials, but I can tell you the line officers, that's what they're frustrated with. And there's also a formula that the police are well aware of, and we certainly see it again across communities, is it's low risk, high reward. These are very valuable assets that are being sold across the world, and thieves are being paid a sum for, a handsome reward for stealing the vehicles with a low risk of getting caught and a low risk of severe punishment. And I think if you look at that equation, it's definitely a root of the problem. Organized crime is exploiting it.
Thank you for those comments. I know that you both mentioned, and we heard from our witnesses on Monday, that carjacking has certainly increased, and that increases, that increases the risk to the owners of these vehicles. Not just I lose my vehicle, but I have the risk of losing my life or that of my family or our bystanders, right? And so the same thing applies. Unfortunately, this government has chosen to have some firearm offenses. Those penalties reduced for the use of a firearm. And I would presume your thoughts are similar in those cases where the sentences, if they get caught and if they're convicted, don't match the actual offense that's being committed. They're carjacking.
Yeah, I would leave it to the police officials to comment on that, and you'll hear from them. But what I can tell you is that frustration is out there from line officials in terms of that revolving door justice system, and the fact that once they run a case on this, it's very difficult to see these offenders out recommitting, and that cycle again is well known to organized crime, and it's international organized crime taking advantage of the way Canada operates.
So there's a comment made last time we had the CBSA union here. You made a comment, Mr. Williams, about the CBSA. Is there a way to fix? I know we can give more money to the CBSA. We can ask them to put more officials at the ports, more officers on the ports. Is there a way that we can get the demand of what's going on at the ports, for example, and at the rail? And we heard last on Monday that there's a lot of vehicles leaving the Toronto area on rail as well, that CBSA doesn't check. We've been told. Is it a change of upper management? Is it a change of focus? Like what's going on that doesn't seem to translate into actually getting any action at the port?
Maybe I can address this.
Yeah, please.
Absolutely.
You deal with them all the time.
Yeah, so I spent 22 years in the export market as an registered dealer. With CBSA, since 2020, we've had what's called the SIRS portal, where everyone that exports a product has to declare that good. Since 2005, I believe, the VIN number had to have been a part of that declaration, but it just came online in 2020. So that has to be submitted for every shipment 48 hours prior to the exportation before it can go on a vessel. What we probably need here is an investment in AI. There are vast sums of data which come into that service portal, and it's just not possible for 5 people or 100 people to go through that data. I know that FinTrack recently announced a large investment into AI to go through their massive amounts of data. If CBSA takes part of this $28 million and we apply that to intelligence targeting on those export declarations, they have an idea of what containers they should be looking at. There are, of course, too many containers to open every single one of them, but their intelligence to know who is shipping this product, is that actually what's inside of that container, and is gathering all that intelligence to know where should we target our efforts.
So, Mr. Lyons, would it be helpful if, much like the United States, where they have the 72-hour window, you have to have your manifest in, it can't be altered, would a change of legislation by the government be of value in curbing at least a little bit some of the auto thefts from an export market to tighten up the actual documentation of that process?
So we actually already have a system in place now since 2005.
Right.
Right now we have a 48-hour rule for
Right.
anything that leaves by a vessel. If going to 72 hours, that can certainly help, and I think that no legitimate trader would argue against that. Part of that process in the U.S., it's not that they actually look at the vehicle or in the container, they look at it at a title. So you submit a title to U.S. Customs 72 hours before that container can go onto the boat. Yep.
You're being very generous there. All right, Mr. Scheifke, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to our witnesses for being here today. This is an issue of grave concern for my constituents.